Hey there, Adrienne Elise here. Welcome to the Gaia Daily for March 26th, 27th, 2020. How are you doing? We continue to be in a very strange time in our reality, trying to figure out what's going on, and yet some really powerful messages for these souls. Today, the moon has moved into Taurus. That means that today it's going over Uranus. Tomorrow it will be going over Venus. So it's activating this Uranus and Taurus energy, and Venus, what we're going to be feeling over this next week or so, and mostly over these next few days through the weekend, is Venus coming into a very sweet trine with Jupiter and Pluto. So Venus and Taurus in trine to Jupiter and Pluto in Capricorn. And so this is a harmonizing energy. And it all goes back to this concept we've been talking about around our self-worth. And what we're being called to do right now, what this energy is about, is excavating our inner hidden treasures. Now, when we talk about Taurus, the traditional astrological energy around Taurus has to do with wealth, money, our resources, what we need to make our life comfortable and survive. But we know as advanced souls that you can pile that stuff up, but you cannot take it with you. And so what we're really talking about with this Taurus energy is our inner treasures. So lifetime after lifetime, we carry with us our soul experiences, the growth we've gotten from our experiences. We carry with us our gifts and skills. And so these souls that are drawn to this work, this is part of what's going on for you right now and what's happening for you in this particular experience and this time on the planet, as it's time to excavate those inner treasures. And you've had so many lifetimes and so many experiences way before you ever even came into this earth evolution. And these are the things we take with us. We don't get to take with us our physical body, our personality construct, even our ideas and our concepts that we've worked with intellectually in a lifetime. What we do take with us is our soul gifts and talents and skills, our intuitive development. And this is what we're being called to uncover at this time, a great unboxing of these inner hidden treasures. So with the moon today moving through Taurus, activating these energies, and it's interesting how the moon moving through Taurus is awakening this Venus. Tomorrow the moon will go over Venus and this trine with Jupiter and Pluto. So the exact trine of Venus with Jupiter will be on Saturday, the 28th, and the exact trine with Pluto, Sunday, the 29th. So that's what this weekend is about. Now, we've got this juxtaposition, of course, of this intense fear, energy, and all this intensity of what's happening because nothing makes sense in our outside world right now. We're being shown the level of control and how we've allowed ourselves to be controlled by the forces in this world. And what can we trust and who can we trust and what's really going on, and the information we're being told doesn't seem to add up with the facts, and we're just in this place of absolute confusion. Now, humans are generally pretty attached to their regular everyday life. We're adaptable. That's what's allowed us to adapt over time, but we're also sensitive to changes in our environment. And so this is a really huge energy. And those you souls that are uncovering these hidden treasures, this is what it's about. How you're being asked to come into your soul purpose that may have been, like we've talked about, invalidated, rejected, and cast aside through lifetimes. And now it's time for you to uncover this. Now, this is interesting because part of what keeps us in the old stories of the past, what keeps us disconnected from the truth of who we really are in our true spiritual self, which is what's on the table with this Chiron in Aries, this uncovering of who we really are, and where over lifetimes we've been a small little fraction of who we are in order to survive on this earth, feeling unwelcome in our bigger spiritual self. And yet here we have this situation where you can feel inside of your being called into a higher level of consciousness. Like, we're not messing around here. It's time for all hands on deck and these advanced souls to come into who you are in your consciousness. And ironically, who you are in your consciousness and your role that you're here to play and your greater purpose and these hidden treasures is really about feeling better. And so that's tricky, right? Because the rest of the world, the collective consciousness, is really freaking out as their regular life is completely disrupted. And what's really happening seems to be a blooming of trauma stories, cellular trauma stories trapped in our DNA, trapped in the lineages, trapped in our collective consciousness, and they're all popping to the surface, except for this situation doesn't really warrant, it's kind of like, doesn't actually warrant the response that's happening on this level of trauma. And so, but is it offering an opportunity, like a homeopathic remedy for the collective and humanity to cleanse out these old stories and be released from the fear programming and the fear energies that have been deeply suppressed? Now, these souls that are drawn to this work have been holding collective energies. This has to do with loyalty contracts. So a lot of what we're coming up against in this Taurus energy is permission to come into our gifts and skills. And yet so much energy towards, come on, it's time, you got to do it, And, but what keeps us from being able to move into these higher frequency vibrations, into the energy of joy, lightness of being, the spiritual ascension that's happening right now, is loyalty contracts. And this is what's happened with these souls, is that because you came to Earth and you've squeezed yourself into this lower dimensional reality. Now, this is part of the energy of how we kind of got here in our own karmic story. We came here, we want to help humanity, we want to free humanity, we want to bring this evolution back into the light. But there's also your own karmic energy around perhaps where you have gone outside of the prime directive in the past. And so the prime directive is the free will universe, that this spiritual ascension that we're in is because we're doing it consciously, because we're doing it changing our body, changing our earth as we go through into higher dimensional frequencies. Quite a beautiful experience and experiment. But that requires each soul individually to say yes on some level to this process. Now, the loyalty contracts have to do with past lives where maybe you came in as an angel, healer, light worker soul, wanting to help humanity. And, but in that process, did you take on or take away the pain or the process, their way of learning? Because you could, because you're that type of soul and you have this big energy and you have this big light. But is that really the best use of your skills, to take a hold of all of this garbage? And when you take on the pain of these groups that you might have karmic responsibility contracts, or say your ancestry, your family, were you taking away the pain that they needed to grow and evolve? And it's so powerful what's happening right now for these soul groups, because it's like harder and harder to go into those lower frequency vibrations. It's like, I can't do it. I got to go into the light. I got to be here. I got to, but then you feel guilty about leaving these souls behind. And the big message, so this is a big cleansing for these souls around distortions of the Piscean age and the Christ mythology that got distorted around sacrifice and martyr. And so it's like it's like getting harder and harder to allow yourself to be in that lower energy, in that pain, in that struggle. It's like, I can't stay there anymore. I'm going to get sick if I do, right? And isn't it interesting? Here we are in this pandemic and so much fear of illness. And yet it's actually a deep cleansing of, like we're being shown that it's this big traumatic thing. And that it's this big disease, but it's actually, we're actually being released from trauma and disease. And that's where this strange energy comes in for these souls, uncovering your treasures and your potential and who you are, and your consciousness is also allowing yourself to move into these higher frequency vibrations to hold the light. And the loyalty contracts say, well, how can I leave these souls behind in the dark and the pain and the struggle and go into the light myself? So the contract says, until I can bring all of them into the light, how can I go into the light? And yet the truth is, the only way you can bring them with you is to first go and demonstrate what's possible. And so this uncovering of your gifts, of your consciousness, your ability to hold space, your ability to be at peace and knowing in the bigger spiritual picture. See, this is the gifts that have come from all of these evolutionary experiences that you've had, where it's like, somewhere in your highest self, these parts of you, like your soul knows it's all okay. And actually feeling into these higher vibrational frequencies that are coming in, and the lower matrix being dissolved so we can access them easier. It's just like, yes, finally, like the rest of the world's in quarantine and isolation, but we're finally being released. But then we have to look at the Stockholm syndrome thing where it's like, okay, the gate's open, your quarantine is over as a soul. Your soul group's out there waiting to get back together and work on these projects and come into the true expression, full expression of who you are as a soul, not that little tiny sliver of who you've made yourself into in order to survive on Earth. But then it's like so we're going back and forth. These souls seem to be clinging to the cage, being like, yeah, but this is what I know. This is what I've known. This is all tied up in fear of our potency, fear of our power, fear of the power of our consciousness, and lies we've been told that it's somehow dangerous. And it's actually, no, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. There's no negative to your light coming in. The ascension is absolutely safe and organic and beautiful. And some part of you knows this, but we've all been kept in this quarantine with this fear programming, with these responsibility contracts, coming in as a higher evolved soul to try to support and help humanity, and then getting stuck in these karmic contracts where we've taken on the energy like, I need to hold their pain for them, right? Now, in evolution, eventually, and this is where these souls are coming to, we understand that, yes, we learned through pain. That's how we did it. That was the way we moved forward for a while. And then it shifts, right? And that's where we are. It's like, oh my God, my path and purpose is to feel good and better and lighter and freer and let this breathe again, a crown chakra activation. And then the soup that we've been talking about, and those loyalty contracts pop up, and that feeling of like, I can't leave them behind in the pain. I better go down into the pain and hold this collective pain. But I've been shown again and again that these souls, when they recognize that they've been holding this collective pain, they've been blaming themselves for things that they didn't actually create. And you can try all you want for lifetimes and evolutions to clear karma that's not your own, but you're never going to be able to do it. And when these souls, because they've been falsely accused and blamed for the tragedies that have happened on this planet, when actually they're higher evolved and have purified to a point where it's not possible for them to create negatively, but they've blamed themselves. And so this energy keeps them in that lower frequency vibration and holding on to this collective pain. But what I've been shown is that when these souls, and I believe we're here right now at this precipice, taking this leap together as we come back into connection with our soul groups, when these souls let go of that collective pain, recognizing that it's not their pain to begin with, it's not their fault, they can't actually heal. So if somebody, like say somebody you have a loyalty contract with, or your family or a group or souls, if they're in that place where they're learning through pain, and so much spiritual growth is happening right now. Miracles are happening from this situation, which is kind of cool because it's not actually that dangerous and traumatic of a situation. We are going to recover. Our economy's going to recover. We're going to get back. We're shedding some seriously dark energies and corruption. There's really good things happening behind the scenes, but this situation is like allowing the masses to have a spiritual awakening if they would like to receive this, come back down to what matters, get into, we've got such a narcissistic, materialistic culture, and I'm seeing little miracles all the time, these hidden treasures. That's what's happening with these situations of people like awakening to their gratitude for what they have and connection back to each other and breaking down boundaries and walls and beautiful things, right? So if you're going to come in as an advanced soul and then get trapped into those lower karma and be like, oh, I should carry this pain for them, right? Like, how can you bear, especially if you have a contract with them, these souls, to see them go through this pain, right? But it's like, we got to be that loving presence that can allow from that place of wisdom, right? And the free will universe that can allow that experience to happen. Like, who are we to go take away the pain if that's how they're growing spiritually? We don't want to take away anybody's spiritual growth, right? So this is where we've gotten trapped in these contractual arrangements that have kept us in the lower frequency vibrations. And so that's what's going on. It's like, wow, if I really sit with myself right now, I can feel that this lower grid, I have more permission for higher frequency vibrations, for that joy. And yet when I interact with the what's going on in the manifest world right now, it so wants to suck me back into those, but it's actually showing you, right? Showing you these situations, these patterns, these contracts, and this energy of Venus coming into a trine with Jupiter and Pluto as they lead into their exact conjunction is incredibly powerful around us receiving the gift of who we are, all the work we've done over all these evolutions where we've been rejected and persecuted and, just kind of like, what are you guys doing here? We don't want your light. We want our money and we want our accumulations and we want our sickness. We want our heaviness. We want all this, and so we've been so rejected from this reality. And now it's like, whoa, we have what the world needs right now. And it's totally opposite and upside down from what we thought. It's not taking on the garbage and the collector and taking on the heavy energies and taking on the pain of humanity and the collective consciousness. It's about moving beyond that and allowing ourselves the permission, the self-worth as a spiritual being to know we've evolved beyond this and it's time to kick into gear with who we are, which means feeling good. There is a secret that's the simplest but most profound hidden secret around spiritual ascension. And what is required for spiritual ascension comes down to alpha waves. And these alpha waves are the brain, vibration of the brain when you're a child is mostly an alpha wave. It's childlike joy, being in the moment, playing. It's time for us to come, in order to create the world, the new paradigm that we're here to hold space for right now. It's about being in joy and being in lightness and going back to the garden to play with our soulmate friends, to co-create together, And so it's like that, but it's really hard with these loyalty contracts because it's like, oh God, is it okay? Like, can I really let myself, oh wait, wow, this energy is really awesome. Whew, So this is what's going on. Loyalty contracts popping up all over the place, showing you, your own karmic journey of maybe how you've gotten stuck down in these lower dimensional frequencies out of these loyalty contracts, trying to hold the pain for other people in your family and your life. And now it's like, can't do it anymore, and then Venus coming into this sweet trine. So Jupiter and Pluto are in exact conjunction, from the 29th, so this Sunday through the 6th. So this is this culmination energy. This is like, we had that Saturn-Pluto conjunction in January. Now, Jupiter-Pluto is like bringing this light to the situation, possibilities, opportunities, expansions. Like, okay, so we had this kind of like, we're going through this big breakdown in the structures of our world, of our lower matrix, of the fabric of our reality is falling apart. But Jupiter coming in is going like, okay, let's see what's going on here. Let's surmise the situation. Let's look and put the light on what's going on. Now that's really interesting because the sun today has an exact conjunction with Chiron, and tomorrow the sun comes into an exact conjunction with Black Moon Lilith. And so the sun is our identity, and we've had this intense conjunction of Chiron and Black Moon Lilith in Aries, and these are like deep hidden recesses of these. Black Moon Lilith is like the darkest recesses of our subconscious, of what we've been told, these stories we hold, the shame around, part of how the control energies have kept humanity, and especially these light workers, from coming into their spiritual potential is through programmed shame, blame, all that stuff. And it's like these are the dark recesses hidden into our subconscious, and Black Moon Lilith, Chiron healing those wounds, and Aries, the strength of the true self, like coming into that I am presence, like, whoa, we exist because of consciousness. We are consciousness first before any of these other stories that we've played out for lifetime after lifetime. And that's where this hidden treasure for these souls is awakening to your spiritual, like you're so much more than this experience. You're so much more than this little blip of reality. You've lived and you are eternal, and you've had so many experiences that have prepared you for this time. And it's like, pull back the veil and step into that power of your consciousness. This is the perfect opportunity for you to come into those hidden treasures of everything you've gone through. If you've been struggling through this life with the issues that I talk about on this channel, then you are one of these souls that has this expanded ability for holding space and consciousness and creating, projecting a new reality. And it's time to step into that. And we cannot do it from the darkness. We cannot do it from the shame. We cannot do it from the pain and the failure and the, I need to be the savior of humanity. We can only do it from the light of truth, from the joy, from coming back to the garden, co-creating with the universe, co-creating with God, and moving into the new energies that are coming in. And it's like, so everything is just about allowing ourselves to receive. And that's how we uncover these hidden treasures that the sun, the moon today going over Venus, or going over Uranus and Venus, and then Venus in trine to Jupiter and Pluto, saying, yeah, it's time for us to radically adjust our self-worth and step into gear with being creators. Now, again, though, these souls have been deliberately targeted. So the more you feel obstructed and targeted and beaten down in your past life experiences and carry this unknown trauma that makes no sense, the more you've experienced that, that's the more power you have in your consciousness. You've been deliberately targeted because of that. And it's time for us to step back from this whole all these stories, and be like, oh, that actually validates like the hard things I've gone through, the way I felt so not at home here, and so like, what am I doing on this planet, and not who are these people, and what am I doing here? The more you felt that and these difficulties, the more that validates who you are as an advanced soul and with these abilities, and that it's time to get back on that wave of ascension. It's time to get back on the cutting edge of what you're here for. You did not come here just to clear karma and take on garbage. You came here for the full expression of who you are as a spiritual being, but that's been programmed out of us like it's something dangerous, wrong, bad, destructive, and those are all lies. This spiritual energy, this ascension, and once you let yourself a little bit more and more, just little tiny bits, right? It's like you're reprogramming. It's like, oh, I can feel this light. Put your attention there. And just little by little, it'll grow, because that's what is going on outside of the big these stories of this manifest world. And the bigger picture outside of this is like influx of spiritual energies. But we got to allow this radical shift in our self-worth, this excavating of our hidden treasures underneath all the programming, underneath all of the residue of garbage and that we've taken on all these lifetimes, and like excavate away into those treasures of our power of our consciousness. And when you're using the power of your consciousness in the way that you would like to, you feel really good. And that's what we're here to do right now. So hang in there and just be present as much as you can with this reprogramming, neural network reprogramming that's happening right now, as this this astrology is supporting us in being like, oh, well, that feels really good. Like, oh, but I kind of feel bad about it. But wait, it feels so good. And that's the truth. That's who I am. I was told I was the disease, and I was the problem, and I was the darkness, and I was the devil, and I was the evil, and I was a heretic, and a witch, and all those things. And that's Venus coming back into her throne, coming into this council, in a harmonious council with Jupiter and Pluto, and reevaluating what it means to access our power. And that, we've associated our spiritual intuitive power with misuse, control over other people. And so we've kept ourselves in the pen, and we've kept ourselves in the gated cage, and the cage is open. So just stick your toe out a little bit and like be in the energy. Let the rest of the world go by right now. And just little by little, make space, put your attention there to grow and receive. It's all about receiving right now. The energies are all there right outside of this crazy story we're living, and we've got to just make a little bit more space every day in each moment, like to give ourselves permission. And that's what this sweet trine with Venus and Jupiter and Pluto is all about. So we'll check in with these energies as we move through. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow for the next update. Until then, I'm Adrienne Elise. Namaste.